Welcome to the Legacy Driven Marriages Podcast, episode number 38. As we get started today, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel inclined, please go leave us a review because, good Lord, let me tell you, it does help a lot. I'm Walt McKinley, and I'm here with my partner in crime, as always, Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, you guys.
I cannot wait to get into this discussion today. And, we pre-record some of these episodes, you guys, sometimes. And we did, gosh, I don't know, Steph, like 4 episodes within like a week and a half period. And just got back from a cruise that we took to Alaska with a bunch of friends. And we're going to be talking about where's my tribe today and how to really build a solid community and foundation around you. And it was such a blast taking this cruise with our friends.
Yeah, I was going to say we were gone for a week and then we've just spent the past week catching up from everything while we were gone. So it feels like it's been forever for us, so if we're a little rusty today, that's why.
It's funny as you go on vacation and you're like, yeah, vacation, we're going it. Let's do this thing. And then you come back and you're like, and we're adulting again. Let's do this mountain of laundry.
It's reality.
Let's go food shopping. Let's take care of all the things that we didn't take care of. So look, if you're getting ready for vacation and you're prepping, we feel you because we just did the same thing. Go have some dang fun. Disconnect. One of the coolest things about the cruise that we went on is we didn't have Wi-Fi. We were able to text each other on the ship, and we were able to kind of text our friends on the ship, and I was able to text with our daughter back home, but we didn't have access to Wi-Fi or social media, and it was pretty cool to just really just disconnect. So if you're getting ready for a vacation or next time you do, practice, give it an opportunity to just not be on social at all. I hate to say it, don't even listen to us in that week. Double back when you get home. Just give yourself a chance to disconnect and just be present and have a great time.
It's really nice to unplug and be away from all that for a little while. And yeah, it might take you a little used to, you got to get used to it when you come back, but it's nice to have the break.
Yeah, don't be like a crackhead on there. Like as soon as you get in port, you're like, oh my God, I got 5G. let me jump on my Facebook and see the 10 notifications I missed. It's funny, but it's true.
Crazy. There's like when the plane, even because you have it on airplane mode while you're flying, and then you get down and like all the notifications start hitting your phone. Oh my God.
And then you just have to look at them.
Yeah.
Right. Oh man, and some of them you don't want to look at too, let me tell you.
And we took so many pictures, and now it's like I'm trying to go through the pictures, and even that, it's like this is all time consuming.
And if you didn't know, in our group there's a joke that they call Stephanie the historian because she just loves taking pictures. She does such an amazing job. She'll go back and edit all of them before she posts them and make sure everybody looks good in them. She's so generous with her time when it comes to that, but it is a heavy task and something she enjoys, but I think sometimes you enjoy taking the pictures, maybe taking them more than actually doing the rest of it. So and it's funny because we've been married 24 years. So I'm like, babe, could we just see the stuff? Because I'm like, I saw it. That was super cool. Where's the next thing we're going to go see? And she's in awe and still taking pictures. And I'm like, oh my gosh, let's just go to the next thing. But I always appreciate it. And so do the kids too. Especially later when you look back on it and you're like, wow, that was some pretty amazing pictures. That was a super dope trip. Look at those memories that you made sure that we kept.
I was going to say, it captures the memories and you really remember them when you have the picture.
Stephanie's over here looking at me like, you're welcome. All right, guys. So let's get started with this one today. We can't wait to talk about this because I tell you what, I looked at some stats on loneliness. And loneliness, they say, is worse than smoking cigarettes, which seems crazy to me until you really unpack this and start to think about it. Loneliness can increase your mortality rate by 26%. And I just saw they did a study in February of 2023 of this year. And 60% of the people in the US are feeling lonely right now. So look, if you're if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're like, man, I felt really lonely. I need this episode you guys are going to talk about today. I want you to know that you're not alone. There's a lot of people that feel the same way. And there's some things that we can really do, things that Steph and I have struggled with and things that we've done well, but for sure, things that we learned with doing 8 or 9 moves in 20 years in the military, me doing 12 moves in 16 years of my childhood, that you have to do in order to create a community. And Steph, you always say it, bloom where you're planted.
Oh, believe me, I just think that's the motto, especially in a military lifestyle, is you have to learn to bloom where you're planted because, man, there's no avoiding it. There's definitely going to be moves, and they're pretty often. And so you don't have the luxury or comfort of sticking with the same tribe you've always been around and the people, your family, and the people that you're comfortable with. You don't get that luxury in the military. You have to learn to put yourself out there and meet people because you'll be alone otherwise. And we were always moving to new places and where
Mhm.
we didn't know a soul, and we had to figure it out.
And the first year would always, we just grew to know the first year kind of sucks.
Yeah.
You don't have those solid relationships. You might be cool with some people, but it takes time to build a community. It takes time to figure out like where the people like you located at anyway, where you
Mhm.
can meet them. And then, you add kids to the mix and then it becomes a little harder to meet people and you got family and you got activities and you have all of these things. And then we're left to feel lonely, which can hurt not only ourselves, and it hurts our own mental health and causes people to be depressed and leads to high blood pressure. And
Mhm.
there's so many different impacts there, but it can also negatively affect your relationship
Well,
too.
we know in today's day and age, it's not just military either. There's a lot of people just moving for jobs, period. And jobs are moving people all around. And sometimes you have to go there for whatever, or it's not even for you, it's for your
Mhm.
spouse, or,
Well, look at the
there's
housing market. It's crazy because people are moving from all these states because COVID revamped all that.
right. Or even like college, be like you end up going to college in a different state and then you end up getting hired in a different place. And so a lot of people have been dispersed from their hometown. And there's still people who obviously stay in their hometown too, but there's a lot of us that have been moved and we have to get out of our comfort zone. And
Mhm.
trust me, for me, guys, I tell you all the time, I'm an introvert. This was not easy for me, not at all. And I have definitely experienced that loneliness in a very profound way that it really taught me that I would much rather get out of my comfort zone to meet people than be alone. It's really not a fun place to be, and I believe these statistics because I did live by myself for 8 months, and I will never forget it. It will always be one of those times in my life where I realized like there was so much pain, and I was in a depression, and it was just not a good time in my life, and I just will never forget it. And I've always told Walt just from that experience that I would never live alone again.
Yeah, and we were married at the time. I just got
Mhm.
stationed in Japan, and she couldn't come with me yet because I thought I was going to be sent back for an officer program, which didn't happen until 6 years later. So she stayed for 8 months, just continuing to go to college. And we had a small circle, but we didn't have like a big community of friends or people that were that close with us where Stephanie felt like she could reach out in the way. And by the way, it was
Mm,
also because you also had your own mental block on being able to reach out and ask people for help and do those things too.
mm.
But it's interesting because
I
you
was
don't
young
even
too.
realize that you start isolating yourself slowly but surely
Mhm.
until you really are all alone. And you're sitting there and you're like, you feel like nobody loves you. You feel like nobody understands you. You feel like nobody gets what it's like to be in the position that you're in. And now you start thinking really negative thoughts potentially.
Mm.
And so we're here to really have a conversation with you today, tell you some stories like we always do, but then share, four big things that we learned in this journey along the way to help you just shift your mindset and more importantly, shift some of the habits maybe that you've created as you've isolated yourself. And make it not just be about you and your spouse and that's it. There's got to be a community bigger than that. And then we're going to mix in a little parenthood stuff too. And I love, so this came from a listener, by the way. So thank you. You know who you are. Our friends that just moved to Florida that are
Mhm.
going through this process again. He moved there for work. She wanted to move back to Jacksonville, Florida. And she said, man, it's so tough to find your tribe. So can you guys do something on where is my tribe? How do I find this tribe of people that we can create a community around so we can really feel amazing?
Oh, you were sorry. We had some things we wanted to cover, and I wasn't sure if he wanted me to talk about the
Yeah, let's talk about the Netflix show that we watched.
okay, so we watched this documentary, I guess you'd call it, Live to 100, Secret to the Blue Zone. And it
Well,
was
so
kind
Blue Zone are communities of people that live over 100. So they found the biggest, most aggregated blue zones in the world. And I think there was what, 4 or 5 different cities
yeah.
where even out just outside of those cities, people didn't live as long, even though they were in the same general area.
It's those areas where those people, they have a high concentration of people living past 100,
Mm-hmm.
which is very rare, as you know. So they studied those areas and, they'd find some similar characteristics common in all of them. And, a lot of times they'll go to the diet and what they're eating and are they exercising and like what certain things are different about this climate or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what they kept coming back to, or what he realized after studying all of them, was that one of the biggest things in common with all of them was that those communities, people really had a sense of community. They actually interacted with each other and leaned on each other and created this family among them. And so they didn't live alone. They weren't lonely. And even though they're up there in age, they still would interact and do things like have dinners or have fun events where they were like
Mm-hmm.
dancing and socializing and um, even at that age. And so it was very interesting to us that like, it really, we don't realize how important that connection actually is. Those relationships and connection are really, really important to our well-being overall. And look, and for longevity of life,
Yeah.
is crazy that that is a key component.
I mean, connection is life. Connection is everything. If we feel connected, we feel more vibrant. We're a better version of ourselves. If we're with the right group of people, they're helping, the iron sharpens iron mentality, and they're helping us get better, and we're helping them get
Mhm.
better, and we're pushing each other, and we're promoting each other, and we're supporting each other, and it's so cool. You got to be able to do that in your relationship too, but you also need a community of people to do it. What I thought was really neat, Steph, in this was it was different parts of the world, some in big cities, some in rural areas. The
Mm.
diets were different no matter where you went. Like one of them's in Italy, and they were eating pastas and breads and stuff like that.
Mhm.
One was in Okinawa, Japan, and they're eating a fish based diet.
Mm.
No matter where you went, there were two things. Like you said, one was having a sense of purpose. Even when you're retired, still having a sense of purpose. People weren't out there beast mode exercising, lifting weights, like, trying to be buff, trying to run 10 miles a day. They were doing simple things like gardening
Yeah, it
or
was chores
walking
kind of.
around, like, yeah, day-to-day chores. They kept themselves busy. But every day almost, they had opportunities, like Steph said, to go be part of their community in different ways. And sometimes it's hanging out with friends, sometimes it's helping somebody, sometimes it's meeting somebody new. And what was cool is, like, in Italy, they were dancing more, right? In Japan, they weren't dancing. So culturally, the things that they did when they were together looked
Mhm.
different, and regardless of the blue zone. But it was just super neat, and really drove home to Steph and I were watching this show, and we're sitting there looking at each other thinking, damn, it really is. Your community is so important in life. And I don't think any of us, I'm sure if you're out there listening right now, there's no way we all put the level of importance that we should on the community that we have around us. And they say, you're a conglomerate of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And a lot of people correlate that to riches, people that have a lot of money. And I think it's such a miss to me. They
Well,
don't talk about people that have great relationships. They don't talk about people that fill you with joy. They don't talk about, man, it's not just money, guys. Money is such a simple thing to go make in life. It's really about creating a community of people that have the same values and beliefs,
mhm.
and support one another in their endeavors along the way, because that's what lifts you up. And the more lifted you are, the happier you are. The happier you are, the better energy you put out around you. The better energy you put around you, the more it comes back.
Well, that's something we were going to kind of segue into, I think, was also that it's very difficult to hang out with people that aren't in the same life space as you.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I mean by that is like, so if you're single, it's hard to hang out with people that are in a relationship. If you're, and vice versa. If you're in a relationship, it's hard to hang out with single friends because you're just not in the same life space. And also, once you become a parent, it's very hard to hang out with people who aren't parents because they don't understand the lifestyle. For us, a lot of times we gravitated to people that were all their military families because they understood the lifestyle. Like you do have a parent gone a lot, or your spouse or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, and they
then
were
you move
new.
a
They were
lot.
new, and they needed friends too. So there was a
Right.
relationship that
Like a
was
lot of
easy to
times
build.
you're displaced in a place where you don't know anyone, and so they become your family. And so that kind of thing, or whatever your job is, or there's just different things that it's hard to relate to someone who's not in that same life space as you. And that's why, we've even had this discussion with our kids that you're going to have to realize that it's very rare to keep your same friends through life. You might have one or
Mm-hmm.
two that stay with you through life, but it's very rare. And that's why, because as you go through those different stages of life, different people fit into that. And sometimes you outgrow someone, or they weren't meant for that season of your life. And so you have to realize that you're going to keep having to make friends in different spaces. And
Well, people come for a reason, a
yeah.
season, or a lifetime, right? And that
Yes.
lifetime group, like you said, Steph, is tiny. And sometimes a reason is to teach you something about yourself. Sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
that might be to set boundaries with somebody who's a negative influence on you, right? So,
Right.
and so I want to go to the first thing, and this whole frame that we just had is about this first part. That's just understanding that we all truly have a need for connection. It's literally built into our DNA. It will dictate longevity of our life.
Mhm.
And you know what's interesting to me, Steph, is you still, but you would really, when we were years ago, you would say, well, I need my time to myself. I would rather be alone, until
Sometimes.
you were alone. And then you realize, well, I didn't mean like that.
Right. Yes. But this is what I mean about the difference between introvert and extrovert is like, I needed that time alone to recharge my battery, and then I can be social again. But it's like I need that time to kind of recharge myself. If I don't get that, I don't show up the same. And the vice versa for an extrovert, if they spend too much time alone, it drains them, and they
Right.
get re-energized by being around people. So we all have that different dynamic, and you relate to one or the other, I'm sure. So I think for us, I- like I said, I can do well by myself too. Like in certain ways I can be really good on my own, but then I realized, but not to that extent,
Yeah.
because then I lived really alone, and I realized, like, no, I need people. Like I need I need that interaction. I need people around me. Like, and if you think about it, depression never exists when you're with people. Depression exists in that alone environment. When you feel depressed, it's because you feel like a lot of
Well, you
that
lack
is feeling
connection.
alone.
Think
Yeah.
about those people that say, I'm with people, but I still feel depressed and alone.
Mm.
But it's because you don't feel connected.
Right.
It's to me, that's why I said, understand we all have a need for connection, like genuine connection. Don't just be around people to be around people.
Right.
Although there's like the fun homies. You'll have friends that are just fun friends and you hang out and you have
Right.
a
Because
good
there's
time.
times you could still be in a crowd of people and feel alone.
But it's the
Because
connection.
right.
So think about, as we're talking about this, I can't believe I didn't think about this before because I love the show. I watched that show alone.
Mm.
And if you've ever
Mm.
watched this show
It muscles
alone
you a
on
lot.
Discovery, these people, man, they can go build fires and cabins and all of this. I mean, they're so amazing at what they do. I would never be able to or want to do what they're doing. The struggle is they're literally alone, even filming themselves outside of once a week when the camera crew and the medical team comes. They are alone as possible in the middle of the wilderness. And their struggle mentally is always that feeling of being totally isolated. So the reason we wanted to start with this, number one, understanding the need for connection, because you got to build the
Well, I
self-awareness
think
for it.
it's crazy is like when I watch that show, I'm thinking that like I'm seeing these people with these crazy survival skills, and they're doing all this stuff that I would think is what would kill me, because I'd be like, how am I ever going to find that food, or how am I going to build that shelter, or
My back hurting too
those
much.
basic necessities seem so hard to do, and they're like killing it with that. And what gets them every time is that feeling of loneliness. They start missing their loved ones so much. And mentally, what it does to them, half the time, that's what makes them leave the game is the loneliness factor. It's
It
not even the
erodes, right?
survival.
It's like trickle,
Mhm.
trickle, trickle,
It's
trickle.
either the starvation or the loneliness. One of
Yes.
the two is mostly what knocks most of them out. Sometimes there's injury or something, but a lot of times it's one of those two things, and it's crazy that it's that because I see so many of them, even the ones that make it to the end. That's what's getting to them the most is like missing the connection with people.
Right. So, okay. So guys, now you get it. Now we built the awareness of why connection is so vital to just humans in general. Every single one of us, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, there's a level of connection we all need. Once we build awareness in anything that we do, now we have a choice. Whether we think we do or we don't is irrelevant. We do.
Mhm.
Trust me, it might not be the choice we want to make because it might seem harder in the moment, but the hardest choice in the moment always pays the biggest dividends later, right? The easier choice is typically the one that leads to some quiet desperation. And I know, Steph, for you, a lot of this goes to number 2, which is you got to be willing to get outside your comfort zone. And you can't wait for people to come to you because everybody's living their own life, their own level of business, their own level of stuff that they're going through. And you got to be able to reach out too, especially if somebody's reached out to you. You got to reciprocate that, or at some point, they don't keep reaching out to you anymore.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you guys, another time where I felt really alone was after I had my first baby. And there is an isolation about that all new mothers will understand, and I'm sure they're shaking their head right now, is it does tend to isolate you because that baby has so many needs and you're the one that fulfills most of them. So, and sometimes that just makes it to where you can't participate in a lot of other things because of it. And so it can be very isolating. And so that was a period of my life where I also felt a lot of loneliness. And so at one point I tried to go join this mothers group, and we had moved to a new place. We were new to Florida, and I went to join this mothers group, and I showed up, and I don't know, I just still felt so outside. I don't know. I just couldn't connect with anyone there. And it made me feel even more isolated. And then I didn't want to put myself out there again.
But in hindsight, because it's been years ago now, do you feel like that was more about how you personally felt versus how they were treating you necessarily? Like they were just doing what they were doing and you were taking it in a certain
I
way.
think honestly, it's more that I think it's easier to connect with people when you have something in common. And I just couldn't find that common ground. I mean, there should have been a common ground of having a baby. That was supposed to be the common ground. I don't know. And maybe it was just because at that point it was just too uncomfortable for me to really find the way to connect in that way. And because I was still pretty uncomfortable at that time, really putting myself out there. So I thought I was, but in hindsight, I don't think I really did like I could have. Um,
You were waiting for them to come to you instead of you putting yourself out there a little bit more when you're the new person. Because it sucks. Because if a new person comes into your group, man, as a group, like invite them in.
right.
We've been so blessed with our friends in
And I
Arizona.
think that's what it taught me is moving forward when I'm part of something. Now I'm the person, a lot of times I'll go out of my way to be very welcoming to the new person because I know how that feels. And so it taught me something. So I don't see it as a total negative. I moved forward in a different way from that point because I realized like you want to feel welcomed when you're new. And so like I said, so now I try to do that. And I'm not always perfect at it, but I try. And it has changed. And I got to tell you guys that was the loneliest period was like when I first moved with Walt and then that first new place as a new mother and trying to make friends in that new life space that I was in. Those were the 2 hardest times and the 2 loneliest times of my life. And from then on, I got really good at actually starting to put myself out there and join things and
Meeting moms at the
talk
bus
to
stop.
people. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. I made so many friends after that because I just learned what I didn't like and I changed it.
Well, people are desperate for connection. Next time you're walking in the store, I want you guys to do this. Just look at people and be like, "Hey, how you doing today?" People are shocked. They're like, "Oh, somebody said hi to me," and smile at that, and they'll smile back and be like, "Hi."
Oh my God. Sometimes people think you're weird. Remember a couple times Walt and I have just been walking the dog in the neighborhood and he'll say hi to someone and they look down or look away. They don't even reply. And he's just like, wow. Okay.
I was like, "Yeah, well, you know what? Like, good for
Like
you too."
you're shocked that someone's actually saying hello to them. don't even know what to do.
And I get so put off by that. So I'm like, next time I'm just going to start flipping people off. Maybe that'll actually get a reaction out of them. Like, geez, don't be scared. I just said good afternoon. But that's that connection that we lost, especially during COVID, that we kind of got to re-energize. And I think one thing Steph and I learned, and Steph, you brought up a good point. Part of this, number 2, is getting outside your comfort zone, not waiting for people to come to you, but figuring out where people like you are. Look, guys, if you're married, you need to be around other married couples fighting for their relationship and their marriage. The reason we do this podcast is to bring people together that think like this. The reason we have Legacy Driven Marriages Facebook group is to bring people together that are in the arena of their relationships. You need people like that. If your best friend is single and you're the wingman and you're going out with your best friend, because I've done this, and you're going out with your best friend and they're not about a relationship, but you're in a great relationship, there's opportunities for things not to go the right way there. And that little trickle that happens when you're not around like-minded people really will negatively affect the relationships that matter the most to you. So you can go to church and find other married couples working on their marriage. You can also go to church, look, because I know somebody's going to say it, and find people with horrible marriages, but you can, I'll give a quick example. So when I had my breakdown in corporate America, I told Stephanie, I was like, I just need to kind of be around other men too, trying to be better men. I need that iron sharpens iron, like that dude, like, let's come on, fellas, let's be that best version. Let's get into the word. Let's get into what God's talking about. Let's make each other better men. So I went to a men's group at church by myself. Nobody knew me. Somehow I managed to get into the first round I went through. I didn't connect with people on Thursday night, so I switched to a Wednesday night. And then we got in like this misfit table. A bunch of us were prior military and probably say some really inappropriate things for being at church, but we have fun. And we've kept this connection for 2 years. Supported one of them through a divorce, like helped one of them move. Like, there's so many things that you do when you get around like-minded people. Stephanie went to the mom's club. She met other women at the gym when she went there. She met other women at the bus stop. You got to find people in your personal, individual piece of who you are.
I gotta tell you, that's where I met most of my mom friends, was the bus stop, believe it or not.
Yeah. I mean, it's so believable though, because where's the moms that stay, especially the ones that stay at home? Where are they all going in the morning?
Most of my mom friends, and we connected from there because a lot of us, if we were at the bus stop, a lot of us were stay-at-home moms, and so then we had that commonality, and then we just ended up bonding over those things that we share in that realm. And crazy, because that wasn't like a actual group. It just happened to be where a lot of moms would be, and we hit it off. And on a couple of them, we ended up, a lot of us were military spouses because that is our lifestyle. So that ended up being, a lot of the ones at the bus stop were other military spouses also, because they stayed home because of the lifestyle. So it was like, you just never know. You just always have to be open to things, because you just never know. And that's why I said it was hard when I had the first one and they're a baby, and there's nothing to bring you around people. But as my kids started school, that stuff started to get me around the other mothers, and we could actually interact because our kids went off to school.
And sometimes it's a crazy stuff, like your kid had the wrong shoe and so did their kid, but they wanted to wear the wrong miscolored, mismatched shoes to school. And you're like, oh my God, your daughter didn't want to put the right shoes on either. Nope, they didn't. Oh, and then you're laughing and you're cutting up, and then a relationship starts to blossom. Because here's the thing. If you're not willing to get outside your comfort zone, you're going to stay lonely. I don't care what it is in life. You want something different, you have to do something different. And that requires you to get outside your comfort zone and go do it.
And something you said that I'm going to just go back to for a second, because I like that you said when you went to the church group and you put yourself out there first alone, and the first group didn't really connect with you. So you changed groups. You changed to a different night, and then you found your tribe of guys that you felt like you connected with. And I made that mistake the first time when I didn't go well at that first thing. I didn't do it again. And that was my mistake, was that I didn't try it again, or I didn't change to another one. I just got upset, felt lonely, and then just stopped. And that's what we're saying, like, the change part is so important. Like, that's what
change is tough.
Yes.
Oh, and by the way, you didn't even know But you just segued us into the third one. Look at that. It was like we meant to do that, but I know you didn't really mean to do it on that one. All right, guys. So we got understand the need for connection, right? Be self-aware, and then you can make some choices. Get outside your comfort zone, reciprocate other people's effort, go find your tribe wherever your tribe hangs out. You need to have a married couple tribe, and you need to have a parent tribe that understands you. Like you need to have multiple tribes for different parts of your life. And the third one is exactly what you just said, Steph, is don't bring past things that you thought were negative or that didn't go the way you thought that they should into the opportunity that's standing in front of you. I wouldn't have made these connections, and I'm going to be friends with some of these guys for my whole life. I wouldn't have made the connection with some of these guys if I would have took my experience on the first 6 weeks of men's group that I went to. And it wasn't bad. I just didn't connect with them. And then I said, I'm not going to do it again. Kind of like you did with the moms group at first, right? I'm not going to do it again. Now I would miss the opportunity to really build connections with other men that I needed. And so that's the piece of the puzzle that I think people miss is they take past negative experiences that they didn't learn the lesson from. That's why they think it's negative. You learned the lesson, used to think it was negative. Now you don't. They didn't. And
Well,
they
I gotta be honest. I still struggle with this a lot, and you know it.
Yeah.
And often he has to remind me of this very fact and say, "Don't let that negative experience deter you from trying again, because you will." And I have probably missed out on some really good relationships because I let the hurt from the past one deter me from really connecting with someone new because I thought it would happen again.
Like that rejection you felt from somebody
Yes.
keeps you from opening up to the next person that might be literally your lifelong best friend. You don't even ever get that opportunity because your fear of rejection is getting you to put a wall up that you can't get around.
And I have to tell you, I've had a lot of past experiences where a friendship didn't end well, or there was some kind of rejection or something that it's really hurt my future relationships because of that very fact. The hurt kept me from really opening up to new people in the same way. I wouldn't really open up in the same way. I would like semi let them in, but it was always like, but I kind of have my hand here, like only so far because I don't want to get hurt.
Right.
And
It's like, come on in, too close. I didn't say to come in that far.
Yes. And I still struggle with this. I still struggle to really let people in very far because I still feel that hurt from past relationships that really stops me from really being like, this is who I am, and opening up in the way that I could for that very reason. And so
Yeah.
I'm the cautionary tale.
But you're pushing yourself outside of that. It's not innate because you're an introvert to reach out to people, but I know you'll text people. I know you'll reach out to people now. You didn't used to do that at all. So I think in all these situations, everything we talk about, start looking at everything through the lens of what am I supposed to learn? Because some of the most negative experiences in my life have been my most valuable learning opportunities and made me a much better person than if I didn't go through those. We all have the choice of whether or not we're going to pity party and look at through the lens of life is happening to me, or whether or not we're going to find empowerment and say, what's my lesson in this? What can I learn from this? How can I use this in the future? And then continue to max out our life and say, that actually happened for me so that I can learn this about myself so that I can do the thing different the next time.
Well, and also when we said don't compare, a big piece of this comparison part, and we had a friend talk to us about this and how.
Well, so this is 4 now. So we're moving into comparison.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I told you it'd be a little rusty today. Yeah, so number 4, we were just talking about your past problems, don't bring them into the new ones. And now I want to talk about don't compare your other friendships with yours, because we all have a tendency to do this, especially with social media and
Oh my God. Yeah.
how much we see all this stuff is in our face all the time. But it's hard, especially like we have a friend, part of why she wanted us to do this episode is because she is feeling this way. And I have been there too, where especially because like we said, we were military, we weren't around our family to help us when we were young parents and we needed it. And, we'll compare some other family member or some friend who their parents help all the time, and
They live
take
in the same town and they take their kids every single weekend and they get, must be nice for you.
yeah. And trust me, I know it's very
The
hard.
hater rate is real. The hater rate is real.
Especially because we really didn't have it, and it's really hard when you see those people that they do have a lot of help and they have their family there to help and support them, and that's kind of a built-in, like you said, must be nice. We've definitely, luckily, we didn't live near anybody to really like have the real comparison like some of you do, but it's still hard to feel like, man, it would have been nice to have that. But what we did learn to do was, like we said, we had those military friends that were in the same position, and we trade off with each other.
Babysitting and
Yeah. And we take turns, and sometimes there'd be an older neighbor that just they knew it too. Like we had a older military couple that lived near us, and they were grown, didn't have kids, and they saw that we never got to get out, and they'd offer to babysit. So just certain things, but because we talked to our neighbors and we were friendly with them, they reached out. And so you just never know. I mean, we learned to be really a lot more open to everything. Like I said,
Yeah.
I even found that,
well, we were forced to be more open to
right,
everything, really.
like I went to the gym and found out, oh, they'll watch your kids in here so you can do a workout. Or like
The
the gym even
YMCA.
started having a date night once a month where they'd say, bring your kids and go out on a date. And we found different things like that different churches and gyms and just all these companies are starting to offer this childcare so you can do those things. And I highly recommend that you take advantage of that kind of stuff.
I would even say that it's critical that you do that. We got to stop putting our kids above our marriage, because what our kids need to see is a powerful, loving relationship between their mom and dad. And when they see that, they're going to grow up in an environment, a household that helps them thrive. But the relationship between you and your partner is what needs to be kept on the priority. And we put that on the back burner for our children out of love, not realizing that it's crushing our relationship at the same time. So there's a balance there. And you talked about comparison and you talked about it from like family that watches kids and what that looks like as a parent. I think that's huge because it ends up hurting your relationships with those people, because maybe they watch your sister's kids more than
We
they
see this in a lot of families.
right, more than they watch your kids. And you're thinking, well, what the hell's wrong with my kids? Like, why won't I need a damn break too? And but maybe you haven't asked and they did. So you're assuming that it's a certain way, but maybe it's really not. And I see people do this in friendships. So like we moved to Arizona 7 years ago, and we moved to a neighborhood, and this is the longest we've ever been in one place since our very early 20s. And there's a group of friends that we had. Well, some of them had been friends. We're all in our 40s. Some of them had been friends since college. Well, we couldn't come in and expect that we would have the same relationship as everybody else. Like, that's so unrealistic. And if you expect that same thing, all you're going to be is hurt and disappointed.
Which we did feel at times.
Right? Left out a little bit.
Yeah. But then we had to check ourselves and be like, well, we just don't have the same relationship. We need to build that. We need to work on that. It's going to take time. And you have to keep that in the back of your mind. Like, I have to realize that it takes time to build these relationships and these connections. It definitely does. That's why we said every time we moved, like the first year, we just expected to suck. Like
it was tough.
We learned that the first year was always kind of a little bit lonely and isolating until we could really start to make some friends and build those. But it takes time. And generally, we were moving every 3 years. So it'd be like right at the point where we were getting close with someone, we'd leave or they'd leave. And so that made it even twice as hard to make those connections because we were always coming and going.
Yeah.
And
to keep them outside of like social media or some phone calls here and there. And so I think, imagine if you lived in a life where you could just have gratitude for the things that are happening around. You can really strip away a lot of the expectations you have. You can start having gratitude. Imagine what your relationships would look like then, with family, maybe with friends, but most importantly with yourself. That level of internal happiness really does come from how you feel. And when you're filled with expectations and you're comparing, which we always say is a thief of joy, the most important person that hurts is you. So you got to be willing to start looking through things out, with the lens of gratitude. And when you do, you're going to put off a different energy, and people are going to want to be around you. Most importantly, the people that are meant to be around you. And sometimes maybe what you can't see is you're not connecting with them because they were just supposed to be there for a reason in your life, not a season or a lifetime. And so stop trying to force it. Put time and energy into the people who want to be around you instead of the people who don't. Stop comparing and strip away those expectations and start to live a happier, more fulfilled life. I mean, damn, we all deserve that. You deserve that if you're sitting here listening to this. And then your spouse and your kids are going to deserve that too, because now you're showing up better for them.
Exactly. I'm just going to add one thing. I love that he said gratitude. That is huge. And also, the word that's coming to me is adaptability. You have to learn to adapt. If you want to have a tribe, you have to adapt. That, like we said, I'm going to leave you with that. The bloom where you're planted, adapt, because it's the only way that you're going to really have that tribe that you truly want. You have to be adaptable. You can't expect other people to do it. You have to do it. You have to realize that it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to have to put yourself out there. And sometimes that means rejection. And sometimes it means, it's not always going to be rainbows when, not everybody's going to be your best friend, but you're never going to find that best friend unless you're willing to put yourself out there to find them. And that's what I've really come to learn through all of it is I really had to learn to adapt. So I'm going to leave you with that.
Give me 5. Pretty good. That's what I'm talking about. We're going to finish right there. So we gave you 4 things to really think about, 4 mindset and habit shifts that you can work through now. Understanding that you have a need for connection, start making the choice. Get outside of your comfort zone. Stop waiting for people to come to you. Don't bring past problems and friendships into your new ones. Everybody's not the same, and every situation won't be the same. Don't deny yourself lifelong friendships because of what happened with a different friend before. And then don't compare. Find that gratitude. Like Stephanie said, bonus word for the day, adaptability. Man, be adaptable. The more adaptable you are, the happier, more fulfilled you're going to be. So look, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate every single week that you guys are back. Please share this episode with somebody that you think needs it. And as always, make sure you're listening to this with your partner, because sometimes even us, we do this. It's almost easier to listen to something with Steph and be like, oh man, what do you think of that? And she's like, well, here's what I think. And I'm like, yeah,
it's good to hear it from someone else sometimes.
Now we have a conversation that we can take into making our relationship even better, making us better as individuals. And then join Tribe, right? We're talking about Tribe and talking about community. Go on Facebook, join Legacy Driven Marriages Facebook group. It's an open group. It's really about keeping people in the same arena together. We have an Instagram page and TikTok, but really the Facebook group is where people can interact a little bit easier and share their wisdom with other people too. Because let's be real, Steph and I, we don't have all the wisdom. We just have a quarter of a century of it, and then it stops. And then we're still learning stuff every single day. And go to legacydrivenmarriages.com. We're starting to put out blog posts and some other things where you can continue to stay up to date with what we're doing, especially as we start to do some workshops and start to write this book.
Just like we talked about in this episode, the community, we're trying to build that through the Facebook group and doing these things. We want to build that community so you can come to, other couples that are in your same space and get advice from everybody, not just us. So
yeah, the beautiful thing about the internet is that you can have a global community, even if you don't have one right where you're at right now. But I want you to really also focus on figuring out where your tribe is of people that you want to hang out, go locally and get interaction person to person, face to face, because there's nothing that can substitute for that. But this can supplement that. And so look, guys, until the next time,
keep fighting for your marriage, keep loving each other, and keep elevating your legacy. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday.
See you Tuesday.